Hello and welcome to episode 204 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is August 15th, and together with Robert and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So those of you following us know that I'm a huge fan of the Power Platform and the SAP integration. We talked several times about the SAP ERP Connector, the SAP OData Connector, Copilot Studio, and also had customers and partners joining us to talk about their solutions with Power Platform and SAP. Quite often, the first step in this journey is starting with basic authentication. That's actually also how I would recommend customers and partners to start, by just using basic authentication to connect their Power Platform with SAP. But at some point, you need to make these integrations enterprise ready. This means, among other things, single sign-on. Well, today is your lucky day. We just expanded our single sign-on options for both the SAP ERP Connector and the SAP OData Connector. And for this, I'm really honored to have with us Shailja Nair and Martin Pankraz with us to show and give us some first insights on what this is all about. Welcome, everyone. So, Shailja, Martin, maybe you can quickly introduce yourself before we dive into the topic. Maybe ladies first, Shailja, maybe you can get started.
Absolutely. Thank you, Holger. So hello, everyone. My name is Shailja. I am a principal product manager in the Copilot Accelerator team here at Microsoft. And my focus areas include executing on the Power Platform and Copilot integrations with SAP. Specifically speaking, my team is focused on enabling end users to take advantage of Copilot with SAP, empowering the Power Platform maker also through Copilot and generative AI. But at the base of all of that is building out a strong foundation with our first-party SAP connectors. Glad to be here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Martin, I actually forgot to count how often you have been on the show already before. So a lot of folks already know you, but still, what about you?
Maybe next time I need to get a T-shirt or something after
Yes.
like 10 times, or like a badge. We like badges, right?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Martin Pankraz. I'm a team member actually of Holger in Azure Core, where we work with SAP as our engineering partner when we do stuff together, like on business technology platform when we have specific connectors like SAP Private Link, and I help the Microsoft product groups that focus on the integration, and that brought me also together with Shailja and her team and the developers to work on this together, so that the team has the optimal experience in doing this. Yeah.
And don't forget, I mean, you have released a lot of videos, a lot of blog posts on security, where you already outline how to do single sign-on between SAP and Microsoft, where you dive deep into other areas of the security integration. You just recently released a really cool blog post also on Microsoft Defender and SAP Sentinel and SAP. So I mean, you're very famous also in the SAP community. So it's great to have you back.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very honored to be here.
Good, but Shailja, you just published a blog post, I think yesterday, right, or the day before yesterday?
Yes.
So maybe can you tell us a little more about what is in this blog post?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I share my screen, maybe I can give a little bit of a background on what we have today when it comes to both the first-party connectors. So like I mentioned earlier, we have two first-party premium connectors in the market. There's the SAP ERP Connector, which brought about the ability for Power Platform to claim native connectivity to SAP through the on-prem data gateway. It provides access to RFCs and BAPIs and SAP. So the ERP Connector today, it supports 4 authentication types, the Microsoft Entra ID, which does allow for SSO, but it's Kerberos-based SSO. We have the SAP username and password, which is the simplest and most common method. We also support Windows username and password, which also requires additional setup for Kerberos-based SSO. And then there is the legacy method, which I believe is only for older connections, for backwards compatibility, really. The second premium connector, this was recently launched in public preview in April of this year. It's the SAP OData Connector, which enables access to OData endpoints across the SAP product portfolio. This includes S/4HANA, SuccessFactors, Concur, all of that. So currently, the SAP OData Connector, it supports basic, anonymous, and API key authentication. And the connector also supports adding API headers in the request. Now, from a setup and configuration perspective, in a lot of cases, the SAP system as well as the OData services, they are not accessible from the internet. So, and they're not accessible from Power Automate. So, to allow that, or to allow the Power Automate to connect to these OData services, you do need to proxy or route them through the corporate firewall. But again, the on-prem, thanks to on-prem data gateway, you don't need to make any changes to all that. Instead, you just install the on-prem data gateway. But unlike the ERP connector, in this case, you don't need to install the .NET connector. So that's just a little bit of what we have.
Perfect.
Today. And let me share my screen so I have the blog post up. So yeah, so super thrilled. Hopefully you can see my screen. But yeah, we are super thrilled to I'm especially honored to come on here and talk about the availability of the expanded SSO authentication capabilities for both the SAP ERP and the OData Connector. So we just launched this capability in public preview yesterday. The blog post also went up yesterday. So we'll start with the OData Connector. Like I mentioned, before this release, we had support for basic API key authentication, and as of today, we now support SSO through Microsoft Azure API Management, and we are using the Microsoft Entra ID as the identity provider, and this enables SAP principal propagation with SAP services. The key advantage of this for users of low-code solutions that span across the Microsoft and SAP ecosystem is the mapping of Entra ID to their named SAP backend user. So this way, SAP authorizations, they're fully retained, and the Azure API Management enables scaling this approach to different solutions. At the core of this is the OAuth to SAML bearer flow, which I'm sure, Martin, you're going to talk about more. But as you can see, there's a lot of links in the blog that describe all of this underlying technology in greater detail. The second part that we launched yesterday was for the ERP connector. Again, up until yesterday, we supported SSO via Kerberos. But with this release, we now support certificate-based SSO. So users can again leverage their Microsoft Entra ID credentials, and using X509 certificates, we establish a trusted environment that securely verifies the user identity. Main advantages here, it helps streamline the login process while safeguarding sensitive information. And as with the OData Connector, a key feature of this certificate-based authentication is principal propagation, which again ensures that the business users engage with SAP systems using their unique SAP user credentials. This again eliminating the need for a service principal to act on behalf of users. The certificate-based SSO feature, it leverages cryptographic techniques that are challenging to compromise overall, and it also greatly enhances security. And also because each certificate is unique to the user, it ensures only authorized individuals can access the system. So, and also the certificates, they are configured to expire automatically, again adding an additional layer of security. There are certain requirements for setup, and there are some necessary components. This includes like the on-prem data gateway, S-user account, the SAP connector for Microsoft.NET, etc. So the blog covers some of that, but we also have learned documentation, which gives you a lot more details into the setup and configuration and everything else that you would need. In addition to that, the blog also, like we also have a data flow diagram there that helps you understand, how the certificates can be used. And finally, at the bottom of the blog, we have an early look at some of the upcoming features. These are all currently in the works and will be available later this year. So on the SAP ERP front, we have the version 3 for the RFC action, and this includes some key bug fixes around localization, so it handles global numerals. We are soon going to be launching something called the SAP Setup Assistant. The first version of this is mainly to help set up what we call our SAP procurement template. It's a step-by-step guide, walks you through all the prerequisites, and helps you with some testing of your connections, licenses, some of those cool things. Again, the plan is to start with the SAP procurement template, and then we'll expand it to help with several other scenarios, for example, Copilot for Finance, etc. And on the OData front, we are gearing up, we are kind of finishing up our journey to launch the SAP OData Connector, which I said is currently in public preview. So we're going to launch that and make it generally available, sometime in the fourth quarter of 2024. We are looking to add additional features like support for VNet. This again, eliminates the need for the on-prem data gateway, so it's going to be pretty huge. Currently in testing. We are also enabling the ability to support tabular data, which again is huge, especially when it comes to Copilot capabilities as well. And then we have the SSO with the SAP BTP API Management, which again, I think Martin will be able to help with more details there. But all of this is super exciting, and we are really looking forward to some of these upcoming releases. And finally, while I have the browser shared, we also have documentation on Microsoft Learn, which again we have been in the process of revamping, but you can access that at aka.ms/Power Platform/SAP. We have some guides there, and again, it's going to be continuously evolving. But these guides it'll help with the detailed step-by-step instructions on configuration and setup of the features that we just talked about. And again, like I said, there are more guides in the work and we continue to drive more improvements to our products. But yeah, that is what I have. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about some of these features.
No, perfect, Shailja. Thank you so much for running through this. And before we go a little deeper on the OData topic, let me also quickly spend a minute on the SAP ERP Connector and also the X509 certificates, because honestly, when I heard about this the very first time, I wasn't really sure, are there really customers interested in this right now? And I was really surprised to see that we actually have quite a huge number of customers, or big customers, that requested this X509 certificate integration. And it was great for me to see again this customer feedback loop that we have, that we didn't have this. I mean, we knew a lot of customers are using the ERP connector, and a lot of customers are using this obviously in production, and they went through the Kerberos authentication steps that you outlined, which can be challenging a little sometimes, and where like you said, the wizard will most likely also help in the future to troubleshoot. But so this was definitely a key. But we also heard this feedback from the customers that, look, we need, or we want to have this X509 certificate, and now we are shipping this as part of the ERP connector. So for me, it was great to see that there was a customer demand. We listened to the customer feedback, we implemented it, and now it's available for the customers, and these bigger customers can now also leverage X509 certificates. So that for me was also a really, really great story.
Yep, absolutely. No, that was key. We went on a listening tour, customers, partners, and a lot of the features that are landing now, as well as the features that are coming up, are all based on how do we address some of these pain points and how can we make things better for our customers and partners.
It's not only new features, it's also bringing like the stuff that you need for downwards compatibility, and migrations even. And I liked also the Power of X thing, because in the Copilot world, everything is JSON, right? And other data types, but in the SAP world, it's all tables. And this way, we really get to the next level of this. So it's really, really cool item on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. Like some of the capabilities we are looking to open up with the PowerFX feature is one is being able to add SAP as a federated knowledge source or a knowledge source within a custom when creating custom Copilot, which again opens up lots of opportunities. So yeah. So we are super excited about some of those things as well.
So basically, the story is becoming round. I mean, all the connectors plus different abilities to authenticate plus different ability to integrate it. So it makes really very compelling. The customer can just pick it whatever they need, or whatever they are familiar with, and just go on and integrate it in easy. So it looks really exciting. Yeah.
I think it's exactly like what you just said, Goran. There are some customers that have required, we need to do Kerberos. Okay, perfect, check.
Yeah,
we do support Kerberos. Now there are other customers that say, no, Kerberos does not work for me. I need to have X509. Perfect, check. That's also working. Or now with OData, and now I'm doing a beautiful bridge and hand over to Martin. If there's the request for SAML authentication. I mean, we started with the private preview of OData, of the SAP OData Connector some time ago, and we had a lot of customers testing it, providing feedback. But one of the clear feedback was actually, in order to go really productive with this, we need to have single sign-on. And that's, I think, where we had a lot of discussions with customers, like, how does your setup look like? What can we do? How would you implement it? How are you using single sign-on or SAML in your specific environment? And I think that was also one of the decisions why we said, well, let's try to have an intermediate layer. I mean, we were already supporting API keys before. So we knew that a lot of customers are using an API management solution before accessing their SAP system. So I think that was one of the decisions why we said, when we go down the route of SAP OData Connector and SAML, we want to do this in a very flexible way. And Martin, I'm looking to you. Even before this was in place, you had already actually created a really cool policy for Azure API Management that we could really leverage in this integration now. Can you maybe talk a little more about this?
Well, very often it goes in our job like this. You create an artifact that is right at the time, but it takes some more time until it actually becomes like impactful to the whole ecosystem. Yeah? And we were lucky to already have the concept done, so we could hit the ground running with this. Yeah? So I'm going to share my screen, and we will be looking at the blog post that is linked from the one that Shailja shared.
Mm-hmm.
And in here, there's a quick intro at the beginning, why you should do OAuth SAML Bureau for this. One reason is that this is API driven. Yeah? So the SAML 2 is for interactive web sessions where people interact, right? Here we're looking to connect services, which is Power Automate and OData on the SAP side. And on the ERP, SAP has a certain set of things they support. And in here, OAuth SAML Bureau is the perfect fit. Yeah? We give a couple of reasons why and why we recommend doing it this way. Yeah? And when we scroll up, so here's the picture that was also in Shailja's announcement blog, in a bit enlarged.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the consumers that they're empowering for this, but it's not only them, but I put them here as the prominent ones. And in the center of all of this is Azure API Management, because the OAuth SAML Bureau flow requires a certain sequence of requests with certain reliability and trust setup to be performed. And you definitely don't want something like this to burden the users here on Copilot Studio, on Power Apps, etc. So it's a natural fit to put that complexity into one single place so that you can solve it once in a really governed, good way and have every consumer app just profit from it.
Mm-hmm.
And in here we've put a couple of arrows to indicate that. So we have the trust setup, that's the like the pink one here, with the SAP systems and Entra ID, and which is a very common setup that many customers already have. And the green arrows indicating how the authentication sequence goes. So we have Power Automate using Entra ID as its own identity provider. And we are configuring Azure API Management to make use of this. And we already have the capability natively in Entra ID to support single sign-on for SAP products. And when you put all of these into the mix, OAuth 2 SAML BIRA is a complicated flow that becomes much less complicated. You know? And this blog post really talks you through the individual steps, how to achieve that.
So I think we definitely want to have a deep dive on this at some point. Maybe not today. Maybe we'll have a follow-up where hopefully you will join us again, and maybe we can also get some colleagues from the engineering team from the Power Platform to really take a close look. But just from an end user perspective, what this means, I would open up my Power App, or I would open up my Copilot Studio, where obviously I authenticate with Entra ID. So now I'm authenticated, and the cool thing what you have done here is that from this moment on, if I now want to access resources on the SAP system, I don't need to do anything else anymore, because the tokens are sent to, and we'll go into more details on this, to Azure API Management. You do some amazing magic. You forward the token to the SAP system. There we are authenticated. All the roles and permissions in the SAP systems are considered. They are still in place. Then I get the data, and the data is then displayed in my Power App, in my Copilot, in my whatever solution.
Exactly, yeah. That's the whole beauty of the approach.
This is really cool.
Yeah, and we will see a live demo in a bit. But I wanted to also give another perspective on this. So this is the architectural overview, and we also have the parts that happen in between to really get a feeling for what the Azure API Management aspect takes away in terms of complexity of this. As you said, on the end user side, you just have your login, and then you watch the rest happening for you. And there's the token exchange. You have the setup on the authorizations on the SAP side, and it's all built into the standard. Yeah? So this is not something we invented or that is a workaround or something. This is standard protocol, standard approach, supported by SAP for this type of use case. Yes, exactly. And you get from all the steps you have over here to the login at the top left to the bottom left where you see the result, which is reflecting the authorizations and the things you had in between. And all the steps you see here, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All the steps you see in here get really then contracted to a single request, because we're also doing the caching of the results of the tokens. Only at the very first step, when you sign up the first time, you really have to go through the whole sequence. Once you've managed to do it, SAP is giving us the access token as well as the refresh token. And once we have that, we can just go ahead and refresh our access until it changes on the SAP backend. So we will also be becoming faster in the whole process once we've started establishing it.
That's actually something that I wanted to call out, because we had a session quite some time ago with you and Will Eastbury, where you did a deep dive basically on this policy. And even at that time, I was already super impressed that you not only looked at, well, how can we do the authentication? But you also said, well, if we do this, what happens actually Monday morning when all of a sudden everyone opens up their Power Apps application and there's a huge traffic flowing over to the SAP system? How can we handle this? And that's where you implemented all the caching, all the functionality to make this production ready, so enterprise ready. That was something that I was really, really impressed, and yeah, you have it here again.
And the colleagues call it the Monday morning blues, when the systems are still tired from the weekend with all the upgrades and stuff, and then Monday morning the people come back, have their coffee, log in and start the systems, and this can actually be a huge spike in resource consumption. And the policy makes sure that the expiry of access tokens and refresh tokens is done in a way that not all tokens are in need of refresh on Monday morning, for instance, to take some burden off of the systems, because the SAP OAuth server can be choked if you have everyone log in at the same time.
Yeah.
It's typically not sized for this type of load.
Perfect. I really love the policy.
Glad to hear that. All right, so then now let's see something live, right?
Yeah, let's take a look at single sign-on.
So I'm moving over to Power Automate. This is a very simple flow. And for the whole experience, I will actually delete one of these steps in here and show you how the connection setup looks like for it. And this will be the update step, where we'll be overriding the email address of a business partner to show it's really also doing the updates. So not only reading, but you're also changing data on SAP. So let's quickly go about this. So I'm going to delete this step, and we're going to create a new one. So when you go in here, you start searching for SAP OData, and then you'll choose that entry from there. And I have a couple more in here since I'm in the pre-prod environment, and I need the update OData entity. And now I'll be adding a new connection. This requires a name, of course. So this is hello world, hello YouTube. And we're choosing the new type. This is what has been released. We need the base URI, which I'll be taking from our API management instance. So we're going back here. This is my API management generated or URL that hosts the API on my S4 system.
And again, just to, in a lot of customer scenarios, that is anyways best practice, that you would not connect directly to the SAP system. I mean, as Shailja said before, the SAP system is anyways on-premise, so there's a firewall. And here with API management, there are ways how to bridge this, or maybe there's a VNet peering from API management to your SAP system on Azure. And this is then the endpoint that basically proxies the OData service that is in your SAP system.
Exactly, yeah. The simplest thing why you want API management is the ability to have throttling in place. So that even if you make mistakes or you have unexpected load coming from Power Platform, for instance, you can make sure that the SAP system doesn't get choked on this. And on the policies here, you can enforce this. But for the authentication part, we just put in here the base URI that we need. Shailja also spoke about the on-premise data gateway. We're not using this. We're also not providing additional headers. But if you had this on API management, you could supply the header here. This would be OCP subscription key something. And for other providers, there's other names. And then here, the most important part, our application ID URI. This refers to the Entra ID setup that is reflecting how we are going to make our token exchange. And for this one, I'm going to Entra ID on my side, putting this away. And here I'm in the app registration of my API management. So this app in Entra ID represents my API management. And this is where I'm going to do my token exchange. So Power Platform needs to make the request towards this app registration. This can be anything in here, but there's like best practices how to do this with an URL compliant like identifier, and then it could have names. So it depends on the customer what type of things they have in here. But here we have just generated ID with API as a prefix. So we take this, we paste that here, and that's already it. So someone needs to tell you your database URI. You need to have line of sight to it, and then you provide the resource URI from your API management instance, and you can already click sign in, and this will then do the flow for you, asking through Entra ID to log in. You do this, and you're good to go.
Perfect. And I mean, again, we'll have another session where we go a little more into the details, where we maybe take a closer look at the app registration, where we take a closer look at the API management stuff. But yeah, now we see the entity types. Cool.
Yes, and I wanted to change a business partner set, I think. So this, of course, when you want to change something, you need to identify it. On the request here, the read OData entity, the one before, will have already the ID. So I will choose it from here. this is the reader data identity step. I want the business partner ID. There it is already. We have 2 because one is nested.
Let's just try one and see if it's not the right one then.
I think it's this one because you see here where it says on the left, that's the one without the spaces.
Yeah, good point.
So, but we'll see.
Looks good. Otherwise, it would have created the loop already.
Yeah, I think so. So, and we want to update the email address. And now I could already put something here. So for us to see what this actually does, I ran a flow beforehand to show you in here the email address is on .net do not reply with like the dashes here, and we will be changing it to the same thing, but we are going to put dots. There we go.
Okay.
Of course, you can put more things in here, but this is like a simple example how what you can expect now as a maker in this on the Power Platform. So we're going to save this, and then we are gonna run a test. So saved, and we're going to provide this trigger. I have a simple flow with a manual trigger. Of course, it would be different for your scenario with Copilot or other things coming in. So we're running this, and then it will switch over to the run experience. We already see we have all the green arrows.
That's always good.
And when I click on the update of the entity, we'll see first the status code 200. We like to see that a lot. And then we see on the body, this OData service gives you back the response when it changed something. And when we check the email address, there we go. We have the dots.
Perfect. And just a reminder, you didn't put anywhere the SAP username, the SAP credentials.
No.
You just needed, actually in your case, because your user was already authenticated in the browser, you just needed to select the account, and that was it basically. So really taking.
Yeah. It enforces MFA if you have it. And this was working because on the SAP backend, I have a named user that has my email address. So this is the attribute that we were matching over this.
To map the Entra ID user with the SAP user.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, fantastic. I think this is really exciting. So this is available today, right? I mean, customers can use this today. They can go to their Power Platform installation. They can use the developer program at a trial or whatever, and they can use these functionalities. They can test it. There's a lot of documentation out there. There's some great blog posts from you. There's Learn documentation, Shailja, what you also mentioned. But I hope, Martin, that we'll soon see you again with also someone from the engineering team to do a really deep dive on these things, that we really take a look at what needs to be done on the Azure Active Directory side, what needs to be done on the SAP side, on API management, so that everyone can see how, well, it might look complicated on the first side, and the flow was pretty impressive, but I think actually when you do it, you see that it's all logical steps and you just need to plug them together, and then it makes sense and it works.
It's code driven, yeah. So it's not something where you need to remember things and click a lot of things. You just take the configuration as code. Yeah? So it's really stable and easily reproducible. Yeah?
Perfect.
And Shailja already called it out. Yeah, we have this also coming up for integration suite on this technology platform for the customers that want that. And we have a working prototype as well for SuccessFactors, which is also a very highly in demand scenario. Yes. Then, and actually you can use the whole flow as it is. There's only a small tweak because SuccessFactors wants a specific attribute on the SAML assertions that the others didn't. But the concept and the sequence works the same way. So there are good times ahead for the makers. Yeah?
Fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much, Shailja. Thanks for being here for the very first time. I hope to also see you again. Martin, thanks for joining us for the X time. And as we just discussed, we will see you very often in the near future again. And with this, thanks again, and see you soon.
See you.
See you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.